Welcome to Light Overheat with Professor David Yamani. Today I am in Hartford, Connecticut for a research workshop with 27 gun violence prevention scholars and me. I'm in Hartford for a author's workshop being hosted by the University of Connecticut. And I'm going to have to interrupt my t-shirt themed series because they gave me a tote bag rather than a t-shirt. But the workshop is for a special issue of the Annals of the American Academy of Political and Social Sciences, which is a very long-standing and distinguished journal which attempts to take academic research and inform broader conversations about those topics. And so this particular issue that was proposed concerns gun violence prevention, what works and what doesn't. And so there were 27 or so of the leading scholars of gun violence prevention gathered yesterday, and also myself. I was asked to contribute a piece on the evolution of gun culture, sort of to paint a broad backdrop against which to understand these gun violence prevention research efforts. It turns out that I think that what was originally proposed didn't include my chapter, but then the editor of the Annals said, hey, if you're going to do this, you probably ought to have something like my chapter included, and hence my invitation. So I was one of the first presenters yesterday, and I tried to video record my presentation, and if it came out, I'll be sharing that on this channel later. Now, in addition to my paper, there were 8 other papers presented yesterday, and these covered a broad range of topics, including the number and types of private firearms owned, different disciplinary perspectives on gun violence prevention, the effectiveness of hospital-based intervention programs and different types of policing programs, mental health interventions, and restrictive laws like background checks and extreme risk protection orders. There was so much information presented on that first day that I can't possibly hope to summarize it in a brief video, and I actually need to still get my mind around some of what I heard and the implications of that. But my main broad takeaway from yesterday's session actually took me back to my graduate school days studying educational policy studies in addition to my main focus in sociology. And what I recall from that was when researchers in education policy would get together, there was a lot of nuance and a lot of subtlety and a lot of uncertainty in terms of the findings, the meanings of the findings and the implications of the findings. But when the research got translated into policy proposals, typically not by the researchers themselves, but by policy advocates, all of that subtlety, nuance, and uncertainty faded away. And I wonder whether that's the same thing that happens in gun policy research. Because among the 30 or so of us gathered yesterday, including the presenters and those who were commenters and questioners, there was a lot of recognition of the nuance, a lot of recognition of the uncertainty of the findings, a lot of recognition of the need to better understand the findings, even some recognition of unintended negative consequences of implementing gun policies. And yet, when you hear gun policy advocates talk about these same measures, a lot of that subtlety, a lot of that nuance, a lot of that uncertainty fades away, and you get very strong advocacy for policies that honestly may or may not work. And in certain respects, that may be fine. If you're going to do a hospital-based trauma intervention program, the downsides of that not working are not as serious as the costs of implementing restrictive policies that affect people who are beyond the scope of your interest. And so this was a dominant takeaway I had from the first day of the conference. I'm getting ready to head over for the second day of the conference, which is going to be shorter, only 5 papers presented, but also some general takeaways at the end. And I'll be sure to report on that in my next video next week, so stay tuned. Hey, thanks for staying all the way to the end of this video. I've got a little bonus clip for you from my presentation at this gun violence prevention workshop. And also to Cass, Jennifer, and Carrie for inviting me to be a part of it, because I'm actually not a very natural fit for what this volume is about. And so as I was preparing my remarks, I had, as often happens, an earworm got into my head, a song that will be familiar to those of you who are of a certain age from Sesame Street. So, one of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. If you guess this one is not like the others, then you're absolutely right. I am the William Hung of sociology in terms of my singing, so I appreciate you bearing with me.